and welcome, welcome one, welcome all to another edition of the Game Guru live Twitch broadcast. Your host, Lee Bamber, live, unrehearsed, unscripted, have no clue what I'm going to do over the next 30 minutes, but I'm going to do it anyway. Now, I issued a challenge only a week ago, saying that if someone didn't post something in the live Twitch forum thread asking for something really juicy, then you wouldn't get any more Twitches for a whole month. So let's find out, see if anyone's posted anything. The reason is for that ultimatum really was to make sure that the quality of these broadcasts kind of remains on topic, so we can cover different things each week, rather than just rehashing or variations on a theme of stuff we've already talked about. See, it wasn't just me having a play, it was a really serious attempt to improve the quality of the contents of these broadcasts. So I think I browsed, I think 2 days ago, so I've disrupted the newest post thing. We're now the 16th, and we go back 7 days, or nearly 8 days, and that's the 8th or 9th. So if we drop down to on the 10th here, 9th, that's quite, yeah, that's this entire page, let's say. So I'm just going to scroll through and look for what you would like me to talk about during this broadcast. Now, the Superman model may need to be modified, blah blah blah, so that's just general advice. How about sneak preview of how the building editor is going? Yes, I could probably show you the code. Extremely boring code, if there's nothing else. But whether that's really going to appeal to the majority of Game Guru users, I'm not too sure. But I could show you some of the early work. Also, another one, will there be a proper pick up and carry and throw added to Game Guru with proper physics and collision detection when the player is carrying an object? No one in the store has no collision detection. Yeah, you're asking for the old FPS Creator Classic style thing where it was almost like a gravity gun but without the gun. So you basically just suck an object and it would float right in front of you and then you can spit it out. That feature would probably be delivered through some additional lower commands that can have full physics control over entities. I think that would be the way we do that. I'm not going to hack in some proper pick up, carry and throw in the terms of hacking it into the engine. It would just be some more lower commands, and then you can basically just take over the physics of an entity and do whatever you want with it. That way you can not only do your own pick up, carry and throw, you could actually just move rocks out of the way and have magical powers or whatever it is that you want. So I think that's the way to go. I think Small G made a script. The object was jittery as collision detection, had to be on. Really quick for script to work. Good news on the jittery front. The reason most things jitter, that's the airships that you see in the boats, scripts that let you carry objects around. It's because the lower script calls was done before the physics calls. And inside the physics calls is where the camera gets updated. So the scripts would always be out of sync by 1 frame when it comes to the camera's rotation. So when you actually swang something left and to the right, it was as if the object was just 1 frame behind, and that's why you got that judder. Certainly the faster you move the object on one of the angles. That has now been fixed for version 1.14, and it's now in sync. So when you have a script command that uses the camera's rotation, it's that actual frame that you can affect. Then you can place your objects, and those objects appear in exactly the same frame as when you got the data. So you shouldn't really see a lot more jittery after this point. So already we've got a request for looking at the building editor. Let's carry on. We might spend a couple more minutes looking through this because it seems to be people have listened and have just posted lots of stuff to this thread. It might be out of the 30 minutes, 15 minutes is just reading the requests. Thanks for the great Twitch. The connected object carry objects physics rocks can be pushed and shoved. Can this be put to the voting board? Yeah, sure. Absolutely. If someone posts me a reminder just as I say goodbye at the end of this broadcast, I will then add it to my list to add that one to the voting board because I think it's a good one to have physics commands in Lua. Detailed Twitch on how to use the store for purchasing assets. And also feature about artist assets and projects if they're working. Well, that's a really massive subject. I don't really want to treat everyone as an artist during these broadcasts, because most people would want to use Game Guru precisely because they don't want to produce the art. They just want to drag art in and then make games at that point. So it would be unfair to create a broadcast which is decidedly only for artists. But as to how to use the store, it really couldn't be simpler. I'll run my Steam version. And whilst that's booting up, I'll go on to the next one. TPEG, maybe do broadcast every other week. Eating into your evening. Well, it's more eating into my coding time. Watch the replays, interesting, get time around, blah blah blah. Okay, so that's someone to say yes, it's okay if we push it onto bi-weekly or even monthly. I'd like to see a broadcast about spawning and despawning entities easily. Watching Layers of Fear, take a look at it in big part. If you go back in the broadcast history, I did a big chunk. I think I've done at least 2 Twitch broadcasts on spawning and random spawning and killing something and then it respawns. So there is actually that information out there in a previous broadcast. Try character with wings to export. Alright, that's just feeding on from some previous conversation. It depends entirely on what method you use to animate. Again, previous conversation. Save weekly broadcasts. Lord Julian's probably going for the campaign to save Lee from almost certain not showing up anymore-ness. Here's an idea: create a video conference where the very best GG users can discuss with Lee their ideas. Let's show screenshots. Well, it's then choosing who are the very best GG users, and that's going to be fueled with a lot of disagreements. So I'm not sure whether we could collect that kind of prestigious group together. Perhaps people who want to actually join said group, that might be a better way than saying, I only want the best of the best. Please bring back daily blogs. Well, if anyone wants to see them, then certainly do continue to post on the various social feeds and I shall sit up and listen. The reason it's gone to 1 a week is, again, it allows me more time, not only to do coding, but also to go to all the other places like helping out in support mail and going onto Steam and making sure I'm responding every day there, and then checking, make sure anyone who's posted a review gets a nice reply where required. And about 5 or 6 other little social angles that I also need to be present at in order to make sure that I am available in the flesh, as it were, rather than me dumping it all down into a central blog. The benefit of a daily blog, of course, is that everyone gets to know all the little bits and pieces, rather than it being on a one-to-one basis where 60% of the stuff I actually write out, no one ever gets to see. Which is why if somebody posts a generic email to me, I ask them that they ask the same question in the forum, and then send me a link to that, so they'll answer it there for the benefit of everyone. One guy stretched in many different directions. I'm like, Stretchy Armstrong. In the meantime, how about this? I would like to see AI Soldier Script completely dissected, showing the mechanics of AI. Melting pot of ideas for the GG community, how they would see an AI improve going forward, given it's now number 1 in the voting list. Well, I think the last count on the voting list, menu editing was there, so it's now number 2 on the voting list. But great idea, a dissection of the AI Soldier, which is probably the largest script we actually put out there, and probably the most confusing. For example, already posted elsewhere. Okay, cool, well that's another great idea. There is only one feature request I want, VR. So feature requests probably don't belong in this thread. You probably want to pop it into the voting board suggestions. It's at the bottom of the voting board. Just tap it out there. But I have been looking at VR. Don't worry, it's not going to be that too far away, I don't think. I've been hanging on for that all along. So somebody else who wants VR, they've just got the latest Oculus. Congratulations, I'm sure it's going to be awesome. Similar idea, so that's another vote for AI Soldier, breaking it up, so it looks like that one's winning so far. Game Guru team comes up with Twitch videos on exporting character with cloth wings that wave like grass, that animate automatically. Game Guru. Yeah, well, that's the problem, isn't it? Exporting character assumes I'm in a 3D modeler. I am not a 3D artist, never have been. So maybe the idea is that we drag in an artist from the community who's really good at this stuff, and then they can do a Twitch broadcast on exporting a character. Because I haven't the faintest idea. I know what to do when they get here. I know to set up the FPE and then control the animations, but for creating the bones, and the meshes and the animation and all that kind of stuff, that's all voodoo to me. I probably shouldn't even start thinking about it because it means less time to code, even less time to code. Just more comments on that above one. Ran the changelog that physics weights and friction fields. I've now done something. Yep, they work now. Weight and friction works. For characters, only the weight works on the ragdoll. So if you kill a character and the weight is 1 billion, they won't go anywhere. There's no way you could throw them back. If you set the weight to 2, then they'll fly straight back. So the weight on ragdoll now carries through when you set the weight value of the character entity. Another idea, creating a pilot and drivable vehicles. Sure, I don't think I've done that, but other people in the community have, so there's probably a lot of material there. Does it count that one person can make 4 separate suggestions? It would be great if the broadcast only went out to one person, but it goes out to everyone. So I think we've got 2 votes for one idea so far, for that one's winning. So, and here's another one. Just been playing around, get to the river. Beams to make guided approach. Right, so the idea of sandbox versus linear level design. Yep, that's a really good subject. I think it's not really about game theory specifically, it's more about level design and how best to go about it. Some people discover it by accident, some people have a natural ability to create great levels, and then some people, do need to be tutorialed and guided. So that's definitely a good idea. We could probably put that on the list. It won't take very long, it won't take an hour, it won't take half an hour in fact. Just to show people the basic principles between letting someone go in a straight line or someone going in every direction and getting completely lost. I'd love to make a massive multiplayer online role-playing game with your tool, but as of right now I don't think it's possible. Nope, it's not possible. You can't make a massive multiplayer online RPG in Game Guru. Certainly in the future, but right now we don't have the servers to run that many people running around a level. Alas. Will I accept your challenge of adding that? Well, it's on the voting board. The answer is yes, I'll accept the challenge, but once all the things that are above that on the voting board have been done. If it's not on the voting board and I've made a mistake, then please add that suggestion there. And I will certainly add it, watch it get voted up to number 1, and then add multiplayer. Massive online multiplayer with RPG elements. Bod writes, I would like to request an explanation of transparency and the protocols required to get it to work properly. I have a lot of mixed results but can't seem to get a satisfactory solution. I've made building models with windows, with their separate meshes from the main model, and they look okay, until you look through one and all. Yeah, in fact, only yesterday I responded to a guy called Fred, who had a building and windows, and we went through about 3 or 4 iterations. Now he has a building with windows in the correct places, and you can stand inside or outside. You can look through a window and you can actually see every other window. Nothing gets hidden. You can pre-bake it, so then it's pre-bake or real time, and it all works great. Rest assured, it is possible, and that's probably a good thing to show. But whether I have permission to show the assets, I don't. And because I don't have permission to show the assets, I can't really demonstrate. But essentially, in a nutshell, you would have the building as a separate, solid entity and set the transparency to 0. Then create yourself a window pane as a separate entity and set its transparency to 6 and set not for occlusion to 1. And then also make sure that it's dynamic and also make sure that it's set to is immobile equals 1, and then it's not got any physics. And it's got a box collision. And then what you do, you can then place the building, which is solid, into the scene. Then you can manually place the window panes inside the holes that have been left in the building. And then you'd place the window there. Because it's not got physics, it's immobile, it will stay there as this dynamic object. The advantages of having dynamic is if in the future you want to break the glass, you can do that easily. And even when you light map, the dynamic entities are excluded from the light map process. So the only things that are light map is the static solid one. And that's how you create your building with your windows, which are working with transparency, because they're individual entities, not all the windows as one big blob. Each individual window can do distance sorting, so, and you're drawing from back to front with transparency, and that's so you can get all your windows to look right, even if you've got 5 windows you're looking through in one angle. So, can you show us how to add music to our main menu? Oh, that's another good one. Yeah, title.org don't work no more. That's the old hacked system. The new system, I've given you a load of global sounds and you can do whatever you want. So that's another good subject. So we've got at least 4 good subjects. Thursday it is. My transparency problem. Oh, an illustration. Yeah, I'm completely aware of the issue, and that was it. So, some great ideas. I count about 5 weeks worth of broadcasts, and I see no reason not to give you what you've asked for. So, what was the thing that I've got 2 votes? The AI. Yeah, let's see if we can find it. There it is. AI Soldier.Lewis script completely dissected, showing all the mechanics of AI. And then you can ask me questions right now in the next 12 minutes on anything you found confusing. So get rid of the obligatory Steam advertisement. Go to my software, Game Guru, run the official version, which is 0.131. Ding, 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 ding. And maybe some of you have realised now that I actually keep the Steam switched on a lot of the times during these broadcasts. So if you want your name in lights, all you've got to do is log out of Steam and log back in. And if you happen to be Steam friends with me, then your name will appear in the bottom right corner. But please don't change your Steam name and then post something rude. Otherwise I'm just going to have to switch Steam off and we'll never be able to use this official version ever again during one of these broadcasts. So I'm going to show you, first of all, what we're talking about. This is Game Guru. This little arrow says where I'm going to start in my game. And then these are all the objects that I can make my level out of. So I'm going to create a little scene with, what shall I use? A wooden barricade. So we can make a little compound. Yes. Obviously you would take a little bit more care when designing your game than this. And then we can fill up the insides with a nice bit of paving. There. And now what we want is a character. Now we're going to use Masked Soldier. Good thing about using Masked Soldier is you don't see his face, and because you don't see his face, you can have many of him. You know, that could be quite reasonably 5 different looking soldiers, but because they've all got masks on, they're all the same. Which is why it's good. So I'm just going to drop my start marker in here. I'm going to make sure that I've got a weapon, and I make sure I've got lots of ammo and lots of health. And I'm going to save my level in case I lose something. And then I'm going to run it. Now this is your de facto where you start from. And this character is using the AI Soldier script. It's the logic for him. So he's going to start trying to kill me as effectively as possible. The problem is I've got 10,000 health. He's going to find it very difficult. I also have quite a lot of ammunition, so one headshot will do it. I'll take his gun for good measure. Now, what made him walk? What made him shoot? What made him look around? What made him decide I'm going to walk or am I going to patrol and stuff? Because if I show you another thing that he does, if I go to this little guy and create a new waypoint, which is this thing, and drop in that star, like that, and then shift, create another one. You've created a path. So he's going to walk on that path. Now, here's the issue. He's certainly not going to walk along that path if you're then stood right in front, because he's going to want to shoot you. So we'll just delete that. And we'll move our start marker back to a point where it won't immediately recognise us, and then we'll just have a path going back to our courtyard. That might be far back enough, so let's see what happens. because he may not see us straight away. So you see he's following the path now. So what makes him follow the path? Now, it all happens, you might think it's hard-coded, but it isn't. It's actually part of a script that controls the exact behaviour of this guy. You see? I fired, but I didn't hit him. But he heard the noise. What made him turn around when he heard that noise? And you've got other things like, if they're in a group and then one person is alerted, that person tells everybody else that someone's firing at him, and then the entire group can come chasing you. How would that happen? Well, the answer is in the script. So if we go to my script bank, and you'll locate that in Steam Apps Common Game Guru file Steam Bank, you'll see all these scripts beginning with AI underscore. Now that's nothing hard-coded, that's just a naming convention that was decided on. But what it basically means is, more often than not, this script's going to be associated with a character as opposed to a crate or a barrel or a building or a fan or a windmill or a machine or a car. These are for characters or demons or monsters or animals. So the one that character used, and I can prove it, if I go into his properties, in look at AI system main, AI soldier.lower. And so that is this script here. So if I open that up in a text editor, you'll see you've basically got 583 lines of code. 583. 583. That's quite a program. I've written entire games in less lines of code than this one script to control one character in a game that might have many levels. If you're getting into game creation and you want to get into the more advanced elements of it, be prepared for this level of content. I mean, you're going to have to create quite a lot of stuff to create those unique games that everyone will applaud. But I will go through this in blocks first and then start drilling down into specific details. And during this time, if anyone on the live Twitch has any questions or sees an opportunity to highlight a particular area, then I'm very pleased to answer that for you. So I'm just going to go through the blocks so we all have some common frame of reference. This stuff at the top are globals. They are variables that can persist across scripts. So if you have two different scripts, you can use globals to communicate with each other. And this particular declaration means you're going to create an array. An array is like a box with lots of variables in it, which can be organized. So those are arrays. Then you have the init. So basically it's a function that gets called at the very start of the level. It's the first thing that gets called. Bang. But it only gets called once. Once that's been called once during that level, it never gets called again. The only exception to that is if you kill a character and then force it to respawn. It will call its init function again. It's the only exception. But other than that, that gets called at the start. Now, this is the one that gets called all the time. Every time your main loop, your game loop, it's called, is gone round, this gets fired off. Every single loop. So if you've got like 100 different characters with 100 different scripts, you're going to call their equivalent main function once every cycle. So that's 100 of these being called. So respect the fact this is called all the time. So try and keep your code in this part very efficient, i.e. as few calls as possible to get the job done. And that gets called every single cycle. Now, in addition, and we'll skip all this for a second, I just want to show you the next chunk. Yep, here it is. This was added. This is not something that's the engine calls. This is something your script calls. This is a brand new function that's been created, and this is actually called from the main function up here at some point. And this is a new piece of logic. And you can do that. You can create scripts with your own functions inside, just to organize it better. And here's another function. Again, it's a user one that's created, and you can call it anytime you want. And then the one, this is an engine one. The engine will call the exit just as soon as the entity expires. If you kill the entity, this function gets called. Now it's optional. You don't need the exit and you don't need the init. but if these functions do exist in the script, the engine will call it. So those basically are the three main. You got an init, you got a main, you got an exit, and those are the ones called by the engine based on when the entity first arrives in the level and when the entity is destroyed. And whilst the entity is in between those two states, it calls the main all the time. And all you see the exit doing is just calling a sound effect on death, which is a special command. It looks at the play character sound E, so it says, okay, so there's a character that has been associated, and it has a lot of sound effects in it. Now I'll show you how you associate, which is somewhere up the top. Here it is. Set character sound set. Now sound set is here. See sound set? If I actually put in a particular name in here, like an identity, like let's call it the Red Soldiers or something like that. Then you put Red Soldier in there. And then if you look in the audio bank, this is where all our sound effects are stored, and go into character, you'll see you've got bunny, fantasy, female, German, male, soldier. So to keep it real, if we just said male and put that, and besides it defaults to this, if you don't put anything else it defaults to male, but you can specify this or anything you want. I mean, I could even put bunny just to be funny. I'll put bunny in there, which is this one. Now inside this folder, because this is what you've specified, remember that on death command at the end? Well, it goes into there and it will randomly play one of these three sound effects. So when you kill a character and it just about the entity gets to disappear, you hear a ah, or whatever it is. I mean, I'm not going to play it, but you'll get the idea. And these are all the different sound effects. When they see you, they go ah, and then aggro is, that's other people saying, yes, I see them, let's go attack. That's when you shoot them and you hurt them. That's the sound effect that's played when they hurt you. So if they've got a big iron club or something and plonk you over the head, you want an irony sound, so that's what hurt play would do. Idle is just them mumbling to themselves, and interact is if you're talking to them. Now these you'll not see a lot of. These have been added as placeholders for the future when our characters can start talking to us with dialogue and conversation engines and cool things like that. So that's how that's associated. That's what this command and the one at the bottom means, and that's generally how this script is broken up. Now in the introduction I have now seen we've got a couple of questions, so I'm going to go through those. Can we have a wander script? That would be handy if possible. Just casual wandering without attacking? You can actually. First thing you do is keep... I'll go to the main, because the main is where all the magic happens. So this is, if you're not currently in the death throes, then all this code applies. You can keep all of this about getting the distance between the player and coordinating control for movement. This patrol one you want to keep, because if you put some waypoints down, it will actually find the nearest waypoint, it will lock in on it, then it will control walking from waypoint to waypoint. It's all very clever, so you can keep all of that. Now, and this is the other half of it. This is what actually does the point to, node to node to node, and keeps issuing the appropriate directives using AI go to position, which is a very cool thing, by the way. Now, if you're not got a path, your path index is 0, you can just randomly pick a coordinate near where the entity is, like generate a random angle and then project it out from the entity's position, and that's your new position, and just do AI get or go to position with that coordinate, and it'll just wander off in that direction. So you can actually do that quite easily. What you would do though is just delete all this other stuff, the aggro detection, the alerts, the combat stuff, all that kind of stuff. You could just delete it and you would instantly have your Wanderer script. Suppose your next question is, could you write it for us? Well, of course I could, but then I could also finish the easy building editor. So which one do you want? I'm sure someone, and there's a lot of really clever scripters out there these days, who could knock that up literally 5 minutes time and post it in the community. So that's my call out challenge to someone out there who wants to knock it out. Just take the AI soldier script, do what I said, chop it up, add a few extra lines, you have a Wanderer script. It's very cool. I think you can already do that, can't you? Yes, Nathan, you absolutely can. Well, I can't because GG doesn't like my PC, otherwise I'd give it a go. Really? Okay, so you're not up and running with Game Guru yet? Oh, well, that's unfortunate. Send me an email at lee@thegamecreators.com. We'll trace through your system issues, find out what kind of system you've got, and if it's something that can run GG, then we'll find out how to get it up and running so you can actually start making levels and playing games. Guessing you can, yes you can, but not seen it done except for Wandering Zombie script, which works on zombies only, because they can still attack. Milo 9000, for a Wanderer script, couldn't you just remove the sections of a script that has anything to do with attacking? It would be basic, but could be used to generic NPCs. They're in the background areas and villages. Snap, Milo. Yes, that's exactly what you do. You take a working script and delete all the aggression out of it. But Synchromesh, self-confessed non-scripter, can't do that. So, and that's the end of the questions. So I will pour quickly through this, not by boring you to tears, which I know you want, but I'm going to write a Wanderer script. I'm going to write it now, and I'm going to add it to the next build. So there. So how would I do that? Well, the first thing you do is you go back to the script bank. You find that AI soldier, cause of all pain and worry. I'm going to create a new name. This is a good broadcast. You're seeing a script being created live. AI Wanderer. Is that how you spell it? It is now. So now what I'm going to do is copy that name. You'll see why in a bit. Get rid of all this. I'm going to get rid of as much as possible. Replacing AI Soldier with AI Wanderer in it. Same with the main, because otherwise it won't know what to call. I'm instantly going to get rid of those aggro things, because pleasant villagers don't get aggravated, they get even. So delete, and we'll change AI Soldier again, and then they can have a death animation if they want. Now we need to get rid of all the violence. But before we do that, no, we will get rid of all the violence. So AI Wanderer. Now don't worry about AI Soldier states and stuff like that. And you're wondering, well, where was that global? Because that wasn't at the top. You only deleted 2 lines, and neither one was that. Because that's in the global.lua. There's another script called global.lua. And inside here you can see it's setting up lots of arrays for you. They're very, very useful for all the other scripts. And you can reuse them. It's a very good idea to reuse stuff that's in global. Otherwise, your Lua system's going to gobble more system memory. And who knows, that is a finite amount. And then you'll run out and then horrible things will ensue. So we want to keep the patrol. We like patrol, which includes the else if. If it doesn't have a patrol, it just fidgets. We'll get rid of the aggro calls. Looks like there's another bit. Alerted, perhaps player is near a gunshot. Would they go to alerted? Let's make sure that all our villagers are deaf. We don't want any aggressive actions on their part. Now, there's an entire alerted command. I'm going to get rid of all that. Don't need to alert them of anything. There's a lot of combat stuff, so we'll get rid of all that. A lot of combat stuff you'll appreciate. See the importance of nests as well. I've scrolled down, I have a general idea where that if, the actual end of the if, not really. But if I delete that now, you can actually see that end was actually the part of the if I've just deleted. Because I've nested everything. Everything has its own little sort of column number. And because you can't have 2 ends the same, because that defeats the whole object of nesting, we know we've deleted the whole combat if statement. Now, the original request for this broadcast was to talk through every single line of the combat system. But as you saw, there were 583 of them, and we're not here that long. But I think you can get a lot of information out of me going through this cut down version. Now what this is head detection, headshot detection. Because what that line basically means, you've just shot the head limb of this character. In which case you're going to go and do some cool stuff right here. It figures out where the direction the bullet came from. It works out an angle. It has different animations. The characters have death animations built in. It's not just ragdoll. you can actually have a full animation of him falling on the floor, going forwards, falling on the floor, falling backwards, falling to his left, falling to his right, crumpling on the spot. These animations are in there somewhere. A lot of animations. I mean, look, that animation was 4,972 to frame 5,002. So you can see there's quite a lot of juicy frames of animation that you've never seen before. And that sets that thing off. And then you've got an else, which breaks my rule because you've got an end and then an else. But I think this was added in really late, and I didn't want to indent 375 lines of code. Looks what it does. It starts that animation off, but after 200 milliseconds it switches the health to 0, which instantly turns it into a ragdoll. And then it applies some ragdoll force to push it in the direction of that bullet. So the ragdoll is now flying in the same direction as the animation, which is pretty cool. And this is just some debug code. But the reason I just talked and walked through it is I wanted to make sure all remnants of that aggressive calls to those two functions that I've just deleted have gone. So now I have a save, and then we go back to our game level and change it from AI Soldier to AI Wanderer, and apply changes, save, and run. I could Uzi all day long. He shouldn't run at me and try and attack me. So Luke is following his path as is instructed to do. Now if I try and shoot him, hey you, hey man, no, not provoked, is he? Poor little lemonade. No, not interested in. What do you do a death animation? Oh. Now see what I mean? He started with the first 200 milliseconds of a sidewards death animation, and then it went over to ragdoll. If I beg your indulgence and remove that particular ragdoll imperative, so the easiest way to do that, if get timer is greater than say 2 seconds, then you're going to see 2 seconds, no, let's say 4 seconds. You'll get real animation for 4 seconds, and then you're going to see what this does, because it'll look obvious, I think. So run that. Just got another post into the live feed from Nathan. Thanks, Lee. It worked a couple of versions ago, and then one update, all hell broke loose. Can't remember which version it was. Yeah, we've started implementing a system with our Steam builds, where we keep the old versions. We started it very recently. We started where version 1.13 is still available. Now we're on version 1.31, which is this one, but you can step back to version 1.13 if you didn't particularly like the latest update. It's a very clever idea. It's something I probably should have implemented a year ago, but it's in there now, and we'll be maintaining that. But in the meantime, please do send me an email. We'll get you back up and running. If it was working for you before, that means your system's fine. It must be something very specific about your configuration, or some tiny little part of the engine that is conflicting with something you're trying to do. Now, for those who are joining us for the first time, Game Guru has a wealth of visual touches that you can make, such as increasing the specular effect and improving the graphics overall, and nicer shadows. You've also got screen space, ambient obscurance, which is a fancy way of saying the shadows are slightly better. So you can see it's absolutely ignoring me. I'm going to stand in his way, in fact. See what he does. And remember, it's using the AI system. So look, he managed to walk around me. He didn't try and walk through me, he walked around me. Very clever AI system in the background. And all you needed to do is one command, which, I'll show you the one command. I think I introduced it briefly to you before. The one command is AI go to position. Sorry, AI entity go to position. And that's as complicated as it gets. Now, remember I was talking to you about how we'd have it just wander in random directions. That's all well and good, but what if there was no waypoint? So if I hold on shift and right click, it deletes the whole waypoint. Because that's what it does. And now if I run it, he don't have a waypoint. He don't have anywhere to go. So what would he do with this script right now? I should probably start myself a little bit closer because this run-up isn't necessary now. There's no waypoint. So what are you doing, Mr. Wanderer? Well, he's running an idle animation, still holding his gun, which is a bit menacing. Maybe this character shouldn't have a gun, in which case he would go into the entity's FPE and delete the field entry for has weapon, and then he won't have a gun. Oh, he's doing a fidget. Now, it's a very subtle effect, but the SAO kind of creates a shadow when he moves his arm up to his chest to scratch his face. Look at that shadow just behind. That isn't the direct shadow, which is here on the floor, which actually does exist. You'll see a shadow being cast from the arm. That's actually working out crevices and darkening those areas that get little light. And when his arm goes up to his chest, he's already in full shadow. Look, the sun's there, it's in full shadow. But you get extra shadow from the SAO, which gives you that really nice effect. So, that's just me showing off. Anyway, back to the script. He has no waypoints anymore, so if we follow the logic, well, we'll follow it through, shall we? We said half an hour, but that never works. As you saw before, the death arm gets called as soon as you shoot the character to death. So it's not going to be that until in the future. So what these 4 lines do, and there's another lure command now that replaces all this, but that works out the distance between the player and the enemy. Gets the entity object number of the entity. It's different from the entity index. You've got 2 variables. You've got E, which is the entity index, which is if I hover over the entity, you'll see at the bottom, entity equals fan floor wall, entity colon. 34 is the entity index, that's E. That's 70,039, that's the object number. And you can get that with this command. Just get the obj field from the entity array, entity obj. Why do we need that? Well, that's the variable you're going to use. That's the value you're going to need for the AI commands. The AI commands respond to object numbers, not entity numbers. So there. Handling the health. Essentially what that's doing, I need to know what the starting health is before it starts. There's no other way to get that. So I created a brand new array. Well, I didn't, it was already in global, but it was empty. I need if it was nil, that means we haven't actually used it yet. So we'll use it now, and we record the health. It happens immediately as soon as the main loop runs, and then you've stored the starting health. That's useful, for example, if you want to know whether you're 50% health or 20% health, because you can compare it to what you started with. Again, you want to know your starting position, so that's what that does. It basically says, if I don't know where I'm starting, if I don't know my starting position, then fill those fields. So you replace nil with where you just started at, which is very useful. We'll skip all this patrol stuff because it really is getting quite involved, but generally, if you've not already set a path, then the character, that means that, they're ready to do a patrol, they're ready to walk and look for a player to shoot at. It then runs through every single waypoint in the level. It knows it can get access to every single waypoint. And what does it do? It finds the closest waypoint node. When it finds it, it stores it, but it keeps looking through the rest. When you finish that loop, you know the closest now. You know that path index, that's right underneath your feet practically. And then you remember it. And then you set the character to start walking. So, you're getting him to arms down, walking in a particular direction. Now there's another one where he actually has his arms raised. He's still following the waypoint, but his act is alerted. But that's for another broadcast. And then you store the other particulars of that waypoint. And it looks like we do some more things. We force the character to unarmed, so gun out of the way. And we have another piece of code here which looks quite interesting. If set to head home, let's go home. Now, why that's there, I don't know, because that's probably not going to get called again, because if you look at this if statement, where does that end up at? Oh no, it does. Yeah, if you're on patrol and this flag gets called, then you're going to go back to your start position. So let's say you've got too far away from your position. After a time, you're going to run back to where you started from. So that's very clever. But probably not necessary, because we're probably never going to... in fact, probably a good idea to remove that. Now this is probably one situation where your nesting gets a little screwed up. You see, if is there, then you got an else, but that belongs to that if. So there's the else if, but that's the else if of this. It's not the else if of patrol. It's the else if of this command here, AI return home. Dink, dink, dink. And then if you're not returning home, then it looks like it's going to do the patrol path, providing you actually have a path to follow. Which case it gets the coordinate of the path, it sets it to walk there. When the distance it gets very close to that entity, then it goes to the next node, or if you've reached the end of that node, it reverses the direction and goes back to the first node. It's basically patrolling backwards and forwards. And then if you are not returning home and you're not on a path, then this is the code, which we saw is just fidgeting. So what we're going to do, we're going to insert our wandering stuff here. So our wanderer code. How would we do it? Well, you've probably seen a few lines of code now, which kind of gives you an idea. We need at least 3 things, don't we? We need that command. We need a coordinate, which is different from where we are. So we're going to generate a new command. So let's call it temp x equals wherever we are plus the cosine of some random angle multiplied by the distance we want to travel. They say I've just put lots of squiggles. Why did I do that? Because typos are the bane of programmers. Typing something out, but it's actually slightly wrong. Always better to cut and paste. So I'm going to do that right now. We also need a temp angle, which could be a random. Now, low is not my strongest suit. I use it when I have to. So I'm not immediately aware of what random. So I'm just going to do math.ran, hit lowercase, random. Yay! Good guess, Lee. Don't know what the parameters are, but maybe there's a random somewhere else. So let's just say it's random. Now remember, this is radians. Lua uses radians for its maths. So that's roughly 360 degrees. And then we can replace that with temp angle. And let's just say a random distance of, say, 200. So they'll wander off in a direction of 200. Cosine doesn't exist in isolation. It has to be a math command. And that does that. We'll do the same with the x coordinate, because obviously y is up, so that's sin. Now basically what that cosine gobbledygook does, basically it works out a new xz coordinate. It's sort of, imagine have a dot and then draw a circle around the dot. This gives you a point along that circle. That's all it does. And then finally we're going to transport those 2 new variables there. How cool is that? So effectively, we've generated a random angle, we've set some coordinates, and then we're getting the entity to go to that position. And we've switched off fidget because I'm imagining we want him to walk about. So now if we go back to our little level and run, I just want to see what happens. I mean, he's definitely moving. I'm going to get a bit closer. If I just get my arrow and then get real close, then I'm not doing a marathon every time I'm going to test my level. Look at the state of this. He looks a bit confused, like we've just hit him over the head with an iron pipe. Okay, you know what we need? We need him to make his mind up. So what we're going to do is give him more time to think. How would we do that? Well, what if he only changed direction every 3 seconds? Would that do it? Yes, Lee, that would do it. So how do we do that? Well, if you think about it, we had code like that before. Remember this? Get timer greater than 400. Well, let's use that, shall we? So, I've lost me There I am. So we have this line. If timer is greater than 4,000 milliseconds, which is 4 seconds to you and I, then randomly pick a direction and a coordinate and then move to it. Hooray. Problem is, the timer will just keep going. It will never be less than 4 seconds. So what you can do is another command called reset timer. And always a good idea when you're tapping out command in confidence that it does exist. See? It's always a good idea to check global. Start timer, not reset timer. Just good programming practices to triple check your code before you click run. So it's gonna, as soon as it's greater than 4 seconds, it changes direction, then it resets the timer, and then 4 seconds later, it does it again and again and again. So now, every 4 seconds, it will change its mind. Now remember, the AI system is already plugged into lots of clever things like obstacle avoidance. I could stick some static crates around here, and it will know to walk around them. It's very clever like that. So you see, it's a bit more natural. Now I'm going to prove what I've just said, because it's like, yeah, Lee, you're just making this stuff up, aren't you? You're making up as you go along. If I put a lot of crates down, really a bit of a minefield of obstructions. That's the beauty of using the AI commands in the script, because you don't want to fart about with A-star pathfinding and stuff like that. You just want to say go here, and then you figure out how to get there. Now I'm going to let you watch that for a while I read some questions, but you tell me if he actually walks through a crate. I'll be very surprised if he does. Milo, would it be nice if you could just set a property to be unarmed so you don't have to modify a file that could potentially break things if you don't pre-plan and need an unarmed character and thus break existing enemies? Of course it would. Of course it would be a brilliant command. We could have a loop command for every single FPE setting available, and then you would have ultimate control. You'd have godlike powers. And I'm not arguing, I think it's a good idea. We just haven't added it yet. It doesn't exist. Right now, you have to go into the FPE and control those fields that currently don't have equivalent lower commands. Now, you see he's escaped my nest of boxes, but it didn't walk through them, did it? Why? Well, I'll show you. We go into the tab guide and go into debug. Now, what do we have here? I've got debug mode on. It shows you all the AI obstacles that the engine has automatically created for you. Now, if he comes this way, come on, randomly pick my direction. Yeah. Alright, I'm going to run it again. I'm going to pick that debugger back on. Right, watch what he does. See, there's a line. You might be able to see it. But you see that line, how it just avoided that crate? Come on, randomly pick. See how it's navigating around the obstacles. That's how the AI system works. It can pathfind its way around anything that you've put down as static, thus avoiding the embarrassment of walking through bits of your game scenery. It even works with dynamic stuff as well. I could put some dynamic stuff in. Won't try and go round them. It will try and push through them. If the torque isn't great enough that it can't push through, it stops, and then it registers a command which says, oh, I can't go any further, what else would you like me to do? And there's a command for that as well. But you'll find that all in the AI, and the big list of AI commands that we've got in the global.lua script. So, I think this was a pretty good podcast. Actually, considering I thought I talked about everything that I could think of, this was a really good tour in how, rather than just wait for someone to write you a script, that you can actually go into an existing script that works, that's tested, and then cannibalize it to remove the bits you don't need, understand the bits you do need to know that they still will work, and then drop them into your existing characters or other entities, and you can get the behaviours that you want. And you won't have to wait for us to create more scripts for you or to buy things from the store. This guy's on his way. Bye. Thanks for your help. And this is how you test it. this is how you can find out whether your AI system is behaving itself. Now, this was just a Wanderer script. Now, imagine if you could change this script so it could do a series of operations. Maybe you have a 24-hour clock where in the morning he's in his little house, and then you set up a coordinate where he walks to his place of work, and then at 6 p.m. he walks to the local tavern, and then at 11 p.m. he walks back to his house and goes for a sleep, and you can play animations, and then rinse and repeat. You could have a character doing a 24-hour clock, but could still avoid all the obstacles. It could still push his way through dynamic stuff, and is still susceptible to Uzis. So this is all for you to do. This is all within your capabilities. So this was a brief introduction to creating a Wanderer script. And to show that I mean it, where are you, little bagger? I'm going to add you to... Oh, it's in Steam. Haha. I'm going to add you to my dev folder under script bank, like so. So now it's a permanent member of the Your Next build, which is version 1.14, which will be coming to you in the not too distant future. Actually, I'm putting a rush on this next one so you can get all the juicy goodies. So just one last glance at the chats before I end this broadcast for another successful day. I will say as well, there a user on the forum called Small G. If you're looking to learn Lua with Game Guru, he has an incredible thread containing lots of commented examples. Small G is a Jedi. Yes, he is. His name keeps cropping up, and he's usually behind the most fiendish of scripts. So yes, I will add my applause to Small G's contribution to the scripting world in Game Guru universe. And I think that brings us to the end of this broadcast. There's plenty more on the forum thread. I think I will do it again next week and pick something else from this list. Thanks very much. Please continue to add ideas. Lord Julian, you've added enough. I will certainly do everything that you've asked, but I want other people to have an opportunity to suggest what they want to see, and if there isn't any of those, then I'll exhaust your ideas, and then when we actually do run out of Twitch broadcast ideas, then it will switch to monthly. But like I said, my challenge was, give me something useful to talk about that a lot of people will benefit from, and when we run out of those, then yes, we're going to go monthly. So that was Thursday, 4 p.m. BST. My name is Lee Bamber. This was Game Guru, and that was Lua Scripting. So until next week, I shall say goodbye. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you out there in game creation land. So until next week, bye-bye.